Hi there, this is Alvin, and welcome to the Kickstart Commerce Podcast, where we share search marketing and domain investing strategies to help grow your business. In today's episode, our guest is none other than Jessica Doppelt, a longtime domain investor and geodomain developer of informational and advertorial tourism websites such as PigeonForge.com, Durango.com, and thevirginislands.com. Today, Jessica and I discuss how she stumbled upon domain investing, how domain investing led to geodomain development, the keys to profitable geodomain development, why and how personal relationships offline drives online success, and last but not least, how geodomain development has forever changed her life. So with that, Jessica, welcome, and thank you for making time to join us today.
Well, thank you, Alvin, for having me. I'm excited to be on with you today.
Well, great. Well, just a quick backstory here. So Jessica, my wife and I actually met Jessica and her brother while attending Rick Schwartz's first annual domain investor meetup held in Asheville, North Carolina. So much like we did there in Asheville, Jessica, to kick things off, share with the listeners a bit about yourself, who you are, your professional and personal background.
Absolutely. So I was born and raised in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. My background is, I graduated with a marketing degree from the University of Tennessee here in Knoxville, but I have a very entrepreneurial driven family. My dad owned a lot of restaurants. He was a professional chef in his prime and owned restaurants and hotels. And my grandparents owned attractions in actually Michigan, but also in Gatlinburg. And so we kind of come from a family of entrepreneurs. And so growing up in Sevier County, that is where Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Sevierville are located. You just learn, you work. I don't know how else to explain it, but you work and you kind of figure out your path.
Right.
And so that is like my upbringing. And I started PigeonForge.com when I was a senior in college at the University of Tennessee.
Okay. Volunteers.
Oh, that's right. Don't talk about the football season, but but yeah, so it was kind of an interesting situation in that I always thought, because I had worked in restaurants and that aspect of hospitality, I envisioned myself continuing in my dad's path of doing restaurants, not necessarily cooking, but managing and owning restaurants. I do love food. I love that hospitality aspect. But my dad said something to me one day, and it was pretty poignant, and it always will stick out to me. He just said, you know what? He said, I really don't want that life for you. He said, I know that you're going to want to get married and you're going to want to have kids, and owning a restaurant is hard, especially when you have a family. And when he said that, it did give me a glimpse back into his life as I was growing up with my brother. He worked hard. My dad, he still works hard, but he worked really, really hard, and he wouldn't come home until 2 and 3 in the morning.
Oh, wow.
He'd turn around and get back up at 6 in the morning because, the deliveries were coming into the restaurant, staff was coming into prep. And
Right.
It stuck with me. And I was like, yeah, you're right. I mean, this is great, to work in restaurants, to make money in college, being a cocktail waitress, waiting tables. But this isn't a life that is conducive to what I want for a family and for myself.
So then how did you get introduced, I guess, into like domain investing and development?
Well, in college, it's kind of funny. So in college, I took an internship with a company called iPix, or Internet Pictures Corporation. They are now no longer, but they were out of Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And at the time, I took an internship in marketing, and then it kind of transferred into a PR internship during their IPO, during the .com explosion, which was amazing. I got to spend a summer out in San Jose, California during their IPO doing PR underneath their PR director. Like, who gets that opportunity, right? So I kind of got bit by the tech bug, but I knew that I didn't really want to work for someone else. I wasn't a good match for following corporate rules. Not that I got in trouble. Not that I got in trouble, but I just felt like it limited my creativity. And you know how everything, it's trying to like turn a cruise ship really fast. It just doesn't happen like that. And I joke that my business is more like that little speedboat. Like we are fast and quick, and we can make these quick adjustments as necessary. But so my dad at the time, when I was a senior, he owned some cabins and a hotel in Pigeon Forge, and he was advertising on the original pigeonforge.com. It was the original registrar and had it. He had developed a site, and at the time, it was a very nice site. I mean, it was all in frames. It had MIDI file music. It was pretty jazzy. And my dad was advertising there, and he said, I think this guy wants to move to Florida, and I bet he would sell this website. And I said, Dad, I don't want to do that. I said, I just really want to move away from Sevier County. I grew up there. I don't want to do that. And I kind of had I don't say attitude about it, but it wasn't like what I envisioned myself doing. But I don't know why. Like it just probably because my dad said it. Like anybody else, it would have been fine. But I said, I'll tell you, I'll think about it. And so I got online and I started looking at some players in the market, and like a myrtlebeach.com, Orlando.com, other high volume tourist destinations. That's what I was looking at. And I was like, oh, wait, this kind of could be fun. And my dad said, he goes, listen, I know this guy has like 25 clients right now, 25 cabin companies on his site. He said, and I know as a cabin owner, all of our volume coming on online sales. And keep in mind, this is in 2000. So booking a cabin or a hotel online was kind of ahead of the time. You know what I mean? Like we book everything online now, but this was still the day and age where people were calling to make reservations.
Right.
Online reservations weren't a thing, but people were going online, getting that data, looking at the photos. Because before that, what did you do? You called and you said, well, can you send me a brochure, a paper brochure? And so people weren't necessarily booking online, but they were getting the information about all the cabins. They could see inside the cabins, but they would call the phone number. And my dad was the king of tracking, whether it was a restaurant coupon or anything. He always tracks. He believes in it, and it does work. But he said, I know a huge volume of our business comes from that website directly. Huh. And I said, okay. And so he said, if you buy that, I guarantee those people, they know what we say. They know where their bread is buttered. They're going to follow you. They'll come on board. So I did. In the year 2000, I was to graduate in May. That was like February. I started talking with that gentleman, and we struck up a deal to purchase only the domain. So I had to start. Yeah.
Only the domain.
He said, you can't have the website. You can only have the domain.
Huh.
And I was
what was the story behind that?
I don't know what his logic was. I literally don't to this day. Like, I've done a couple of transactions, here, like after the fact, and you transfer everything, right? You transfer the domain, you assume all the contracts, all the liabilities, you assume all that when you buy a business. But this guy was like, you don't get my clients, you don't get any of the content on the site. I mean, I was like, okay, cool.
But he's willing to give you the very critical piece of that equation.
The one and only, which to me, that would be like, what is he going to do with the website? Right.
Right.
I mean, in retrospect, I kind of like, but maybe in retrospect, it also allowed me creative freedom to go in my own direction without having his creative direction in my background, if that makes sense.
Right.
It freed me open to do what I wanted to do on a different level.
Huh. And so then you purchased it, and then what happened?
Well, I purchased it, and I was like, well, I need a website. I didn't know HTML. I didn't know how to build a website. I knew that I had these potential clients. So I was like, well, I'll go out there. I'm going to find somebody, first of all, to build the site. And I'm going to go talk to these people to let them know that I'm coming. I'm building a site. Like, I'm in the process. I'm going to go get their contracts lined up. But in the meantime, I was like, well, geez, I need a site. So I called a developer, kind of a friend that I had made when I had been working in college at iPix. And I said, hey, I'm looking for somebody to design this site. Do you know anybody that would be interested? Like, just send me some names because I need to figure this out. And he came back and he said, I can send you some names, but I would like to do it. And I said, oh, really? Okay, great. Because I mean, it's not just a site, there's a technical aspect of it. Like, where are you hosting it? Is a server? This is, before they had all these great servers where you could just go on Amazon or Google or whatever. I mean, this is like, wait, we need like a physical server. So he did. And so we sat down, we decided what I wanted that site to look like in a rough fashion. He took off with it. I went out and sold, and he was doing this. He had a full-time job and a family. Wow. And so he was doing this like moonlighting. Huh. Yeah. And so in the meantime, I'm like, well, I need to learn HTML. So I'm learning HTML. I'm learning how to use Dreamweaver. And
Dreamweaver.
Dreamweaver. Love it. It has like a soft place in my heart. But yeah. And it would be funny because he would say, I can teach you how to do that. Can you come over after I put the kids to bed at 9:30? And I was like, yeah. Is your wife cool with that? And she was like, yeah, totally. Kim's totally cool. So I was like, well, okay. So it was just this weird, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. I was just this 22-year-old girl trying to, I'm fresh out of college, 21, 22. I'm trying to make some money and make something here. And so that's kind of like how we just got started. And
so let me ask you this. So then from the time that you purchased it till the time he built the site and you launched it, what was that time frame? Was it like 3 to 6 months or? It
was like 3 to 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so during that time, though, you're out, I guess, hustling in terms of getting all the making the inroads in with the relationships of what it is that you'll be able to offer, kind of sight unseen, I guess.
Exactly. And I also went into with this idea of, well, let me get some feedback from the people that have been on the site, right?
Right.
I'm like, well, I mean, they know, so let's get a little feedback of maybe they want something a little different, or maybe they're happy, or, and one of the things that stuck out with me, and I think we're going to talk to a little bit later in the conversation, but you alluded to in the introduction, was that I had this one client from the beginning who was like, I like online stuff, but people just come and they sell me something and I never hear from them or see them again. There was this big disconnect between online service, like customer service, and like what people are traditionally used to.
Wow. Yeah. And so you're out there. So that actually plays into it then in terms of you building that brand, because you're making these personal connections long before the site ever shows up. The site shows up, and then what happens?
We start building. We start building and adding these clients in, and they were all cabin companies at the time. Okay. I think maybe we had a handful of hotels, like real small kind of mom and pops.
Right.
But they were all really cabin companies.
Huh. So then from the time you launched and you have the customers, then how long did it take to get to profitability?
We were profitable within about 6 months.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We were profitable very quickly. Thankfully, because again, here I am, a college student. I've been told by professors and, from university that they're like, this isn't going to work. Why are you doing this? And, 2000, 2001, we're seeing a decline of .coms. So they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, well, I know this will work. I'm not trying to take this company public.
Right. Yeah. You're after pretty much a lifestyle business.
Yeah. I'm looking to pay like my rent and, I like to shop. So
Interesting. So then it's providing enough to basically offer a rather reasonable livelihood for you then, as a single college student.
absolutely.
Uh,
Absolutely.
and so then we fast forward today. So obviously all that occurred in early 2000. So we look 19 years later. So like as of today, like how big a company is pigeonforge.com, like in terms of employees, revenue, customers?
So, our employees we have one, two, three, we have three full-time in-house employees and then myself. And then I have a fellow I kind of like outsource some stuff to, a couple writers. So we do, I pay a couple writers that don't live in town to write some things. But I run a real streamlined ship. And year over year, we have been profitable in a way that surprises me. We went through a recession and we were still doing better than the previous year. It's remarkable. And it's even 19 years later, this is my best year yet.
Gotcha. Now, would you say that it's a multi-million dollar business, or is it less than that? I guess if we were to put numbers to it, are you going to say, hey, it's greater than 5 million or less than 5 million?
From a valuation standpoint, if we look at value of domain, which, we from a domaining standpoint, you're going to sell this business and we look at a valuation of a domain.
Correct.
We look at like revenue source and all of that combined, we're over 5 million.
Wow. That is awesome. Yeah. And so to start where you started from, which is essentially just from that given domain itself, having to rebuild the brand and then to build it into, like you said, the valuation of 5 million or so, at least, I go, that's not bad.
No, it's not bad at all. And it's fantastic. In my wildest dreams, I never would have thought like, oh, this is what I would be doing. But I do love it. I go to work every day excited that, okay, well, what are we going to do today? What are we going to create today? Who am I going to get to talk to today? And I love it.
Right. Now, is pigeonforge.com the only domain that you own?
So no, I actually own Durango.com. Durango is in Durango, Colorado. It's Southwest Colorado in the San Juan Mountains. It's a smaller tourist destination, but still heavily visitors come in to town. And there's a lot of outdoor stuff like zip lining, rafting, biking. There is a train there called the Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad that goes back and forth between Durango and into Silverton. And it's a train that used to pull silver out of the mountains and bring it back in for processing. And so it's just a really cool town. Like it's incredible restaurants. Like you'd think, why does this little weird town have all these amazing restaurants? And they just do. It's wild, but
so how did you get involved in terms of what made you choose Durango? I mean, out of all the cities in the U.S.
Well, Durango was a wild one. So there used to be, it's no longer, but there used to be a group called Associated Cities, and we would kind of all the city owners, purecity.coms would meet up. And I was at one of those meetings and I was actually speaking, and a fellow in the audience, I had never met him before, but he started asking me about our business and some things we were doing for like revenue generating pieces of our puzzle. And I just looked at him. I was like, well, what do you own? And so he starts listing off a couple of domains, and they were one of which was Durango.com. And I jokingly said to him, let me know if you're ever interested in selling any of those. And he came back to me later and he's like, I actually am. I don't like this. And I said, oh, okay. And it's funny because he's like a super genius tech, right? But he just didn't like the selling customer service component of what we do.
Yeah. He didn't like that personal touch point, which is quite critical to the business.
He didn't like it all. He goes, these customers annoy me. And I was like, you mean the people that pay you? I was like, okay, well, that's a problem. So that's how actually I ended up with Durango. And that was in 2000 I think that was 2006. Is that right? I think that was 2006 or 2007. I also have the virginislands.com. It is not a pure city. It is actually the virginislands.com. And we run a little bit of a different platform on that one. And it's not a real revenue generator, but it is fun to play around with.
Gotcha. And so
every city has kind of its own like feel about how they do commerce. It's pretty entertaining.
Right. And that's what I was going to ask, like how, you can't necessarily, I guess it's more of, you can't copy and paste from a pigeonforge.com into another city, albeit there'll be some similarities, some commonalities, but it seems like each city has its own difference of what likely visitors are looking for, as well as just what you can do from a business model. So, I mean, how does that impact you? Do you see yourself, growing beyond these three, or is it that, hey, these three are pretty time intensive in terms of, focus and just having the ability to grow the profitability of them?
Given the opportunity to pick up another city.com, I absolutely would. I'm not ever ruling that out because I do enjoy it. It has to fall in certain parameters for me, like the profitability component, the city itself, the city dynamic. For example, what I mean there is I don't care for a city that doesn't have tourism. I want it to be somewhere where people want to go and just want to be. I don't want just a generic city, because then what am I going to put on that site? The news? I mean, and I don't want to do local businesses. I just love that tourism piece. And I think that is because your visitors are coming with families or their loved ones or whomever, but they're creating memories, and there's something very special about that.
Totally. And it's probably that, with going after tourism, obviously there is an amount or a certain amount of disposable income that's necessary to be able to do that. So that puts you in a whole different bracket of, one, being able to serve, I guess you'd say, the end user, if you will, those who are vacationing, those who are sightseeing, or, coming to be a tourist, and really being the platform that connects the two sides together, the businesses and the consumers.
Absolutely.
Interesting. So then, like, what is like the greatest challenge of operating, a geodomain website such as Pigeon Forge?
Well, I think the greatest challenge, but it's a challenge I love, is content creation. Many people think you can just buy a domain, slap something up there, and you're going to all of a sudden money is going to start appearing in your checking account. It does not work that way. It's this, you've got to give your users or potential users a compelling reason to visit your site. Like, why do they want to come here and get their information? What information are they looking for? And so we come at that from many different angles, and we do a lot of research in that. And that's where I think it gets tricky, is you're always having to come up with something new and innovative, but that people really want to read.
Right.
Or see, like from a video standpoint.
Right. And I was about to ask, now, I know you were talking about, producing written content, but then I also wonder whether or not, your businesses have been impacted by, just the growth of video content.
It's funny. We don't do a lot of video at all. If we do, it appears over on social media, short clips, whether it's Instagram or Facebook. So it really has not impacted our business. I think I like to do video. It's fun. It's different. It's neat. And we probably should do more of it, honestly. But yeah, I mean, it hasn't impacted our business.
Gotcha. So then in terms of, I know that, we had mentioned in terms of you have the content piece, but then there's also that personal touch piece. So it's really that what really drives the success. Number one is that personal touch with the businesses, but then also, providing content that the customers want. Like, is there anything else outside of those two things that are critical, to success for those that are listening that are thinking, hey, I may want to go try this for, another region?
It really is that, I mean, that piece of that, I would say, is that personal touch point, like
Mm-hmm.
with your client, and understanding what their end goals are, what their passions are within their business, and just kind of helping them and seeing them succeed is very important to me. I love it when a client is like, oh, that, we're getting so much traffic from you, or that was such a great blog, or even when they share a blog or a piece of our content is a compliment to me. It means we've done something right.
Right. Now, how do you, and you mentioned, just sharing of content. Now, how have you had to adjust, because obviously you were before social media platforms ever came into play. Have you had to adjust, to account for those, or have they not really impacted, what you do?
So yes and no. Social media has been helpful, and I don't want to say hurtful, but it is also another challenging component you have to add into the equation. When we started, it was our website, and then we added in a newsletter once a month, and now we're once a week we do this newsletter, and I'm still shocked at the open rate on our newsletter. People are just loyal subscribers, and that's something that we've done for such a long time, yet it's still very profitable for us. It's still very applicable in our market. But then the social media piece of it, social media is tricky, I have found, across the board for anything, just in that there is so much content out there. It is overwhelming for a user. And so you kind of have to think, well, how am I going to reach that user? There's also this component that is tricky that we have no control over, which is what, Facebook and Instagram allow a user to see. We have no control over that.
Right.
Obviously, if you have put something out there and it starts getting traction organically, then Facebook algorithm picks up on it, and then they start pushing it out to more people. So your reach broadens, the more engagement you have. But it's hard to get to that tipping point. And that's not something that we as consumers have a lot of control, or I guess producers on social media have a lot of control over. So it's trying to figure out, what is it that is going to tip?
Gotcha.
And weird things will do it, and that's where it's kind of like there's no pattern to it, and
right.
We can get timing of posts and all of it, and there's no secret formula.
It's like there's no rhyme or reason, yet in the same breath, it's really, I kind of look at it and I go, I don't know that this is necessarily true, but just thinking about what you said, it's like I imagine that because of the personal touch points that you have, both with business and likely in customers who are using the site to plan their vacation, because of that personal connection there, you're likely getting a good bit of business through word of mouth, in addition through social media, but not, I guess you'd say, not necessarily that you're doing paid advertisement, but it's more so, you have a fan page and somebody visited Pigeon Forge, and then they're telling their family and friends about it. Likewise with businesses who have advertised there, and then they may refer others.
Absolutely. And, our businesses, I think, one of the main reasons that they see us is they start typing things into search, and they're like, oh, pigeonforge.com is number one for that search term. Pigeon Forge is number one for that. We rank very high organically. And from a business standpoint, business to business, that's excellent for us. And they do see us online. And they also have seen 19 years of consistent work out of me.
Right.
They haven't seen 5 or 8 people. It's me. And that is what I think is, they've seen me grow up.
Right.
They've seen me, have kids. And
I was about to say, because they see you go from being single to married, from married to mom. So
so you're kind of living life with them. But I think that's a big part of it too, is just consistency in the brand, but also my consistency as a business owner.
Wow, that is awesome. So then in terms of, because I know that we probably have domain investors that are listening that are like, well, that's cool. That's great. She has a profitable company that she developed on a pigeonforge.com. But then in terms of even outside of the other domains like Durango.com, the Virgin Islands.com, do you own other domains, or do you see yourself as a domain investor?
So yes, I would say yes. But I am a little bit different in that I pick up domains now that are only related to the businesses that I have. It used to be, well, maybe we should pick up all these other domains like 123 Candy, or I love. I don't do that. I am very focused in my purchasing. So, for example, we have underneath the pigeonforge.com umbrella, we have pigeonforgewinterfest.com. Winterfest is like a big event in our county from November to February with Christmas lights and Santa Clauses and all this whole thing.
Oh, nice.
And so we have pigeonforgerealestate.com. We have pigeonforgecarshows.com.
Now, are those developed, or are those?
They are developed. No, they're developed, and we can sell ads on them. We do, but it's another driver of traffic to the main site. That's my end game.
Got it. So then you use those, I guess you say, secondary websites then to drive traffic to the primary website.
Yeah, exactly. And so like I feel like if you start buying a bunch of domains as a domainer, you can have a lot of domains, but if you're not doing anything with them, you're just paying the registration fees. Then what are we doing? Like,
right.
You start spreading yourself too thin, and then where are you going to focus your attention and your finances on these? How are you going to fund these projects? Are you going to fund them? So I prefer to be more focused. My other intention is in buying these buying domains that are related to the businesses specifically, is that when or if I do sell pigeonforge.com, it's not just one domain, but it's a portfolio of websites.
That's nice. I didn't even think about that from that standpoint.
So now we're looking at a higher valuation because
exactly
there's more to it.
Wow. So then in all, like, how many domains are you talking about that you've either developed under that umbrella or you just own and redirect?
So we probably have like 60 now. I mean, it used to be I had a lot more and it was kind of random stuff, but I've just sloughed them off and really have just focused on, okay, here's what we're doing. Here's where we see success. So that's what we're going after.
Now, have you taken the same approach with Durango.com or?
I have. So with Durango, there's some other like smaller sites underneath, not as many, but there are more domains that are just redirected into the site.
Hey, now, interesting question, because it's a thought that just goes through my mind, obviously, because of the Dodge Durango. So it made me think about, like, have you ever received inquiries just because you own Durango.com? Even though it's for a city, I obviously there is a product that's out on the market, pretty big ticket.
Yeah, so that's funny.
Have you received inquiries?
There are, in that is, I thought about that because I was like, it seems like Dodge Durango would want this domain, but this domain has always been used for Durango, Colorado, period. There's also a Durango, Mexico. Which is hilarious, to my opinion, because if you go to Instagram and you search Durango, 80% of the photos that you see are from Durango, Mexico. I don't know what they're doing down there, but all their photos are sexy women, fast, loud cars, and handguns. And please just go to Instagram,
This is a
hashtag
Fast and Furious moment.
fast, furious, and hot. I mean, and lots of dancing. And I'm like, what are they doing in Durango, Mexico? Maybe I'm in the wrong city here. But the other oddity we get, especially around Christmas time, this is where the search volume will go up. Our on-site search, we get a lot of SKUs for Durango boots. You know, the cowboy boots?
Oh, I forgot about that.
Yeah. So we use a plugin on site that tracks all of our search. And so like we can see what visitors are searching for. And so I kept seeing these weird numbers, but then the number would be followed by the word boot or boots. And I was like, what in the world? And so I typed it into like Google just to see, and it would be boots. And so I don't understand this at all, but they come to Durango.com, go to our search bar and type in a SKU, boot. And then I guess they're expecting boots to populate. And especially around Christmas time is when I see this high volumes, and I just laugh about it. But we've never done cars. We've never done boots. We've always just done travel tourism.
Huh. Now, you hit an interesting point, though, because you mentioned about there being Durango, Mexico. Now, have you ever thought about going abroad and actually investing time and effort, into developing maybe a region, area, or a city?
I've thought about it, considered it. A couple offers have come across. I am cautious in that because I don't know those markets as well. Like
right.
To me, like in the United States, I can pretty much figure it out. But when you start doing your like international travel, mm-hmm. I'm like, that would be a lot more challenging and a greater learning curve. And so I've never done it.
Gotcha. But if someone were listening who, I guess, kind of had the same path that you had in terms of growing up in that area, do you think it's beneficial? Obviously, there are so many different factors to consider in all of this, but all things being equal, if they had kind of the same background or the same journey as you had in terms of Pigeon Forge, then I guess it's likely conducive that they could do that same thing for the area that they know about.
Absolutely. Because they are an expert on that area.
Right.
Just as I'm an expert on my areas.
Gotcha. And then, so it's interesting. I mean, do you find yourself using other geo sites? Obviously, the ins and outs of what it means to operate one, but then to plan your own, do you find yourself, typing in city names or places that, that you and your family want to visit?
Well, yes, I do. Totally. But this is kind of a funny little story. And we usually, like every family go to the beach in the summertime. And I was like, I do not want to go to the beach again. I'm just over it. I want to do something a little bit different, a little more adventurous. And so I had always wanted to go to, Sedona, Arizona, Page, Arizona, Grand Canyon. And so I took a completely different approach on planning a trip. And I told my family, I said, this is a trip that Instagram built, y'all. And they were like, what do you mean? And I said, well, I have gone into Instagram and I search hashtags, like the true use of what a hashtag is, not this like hashtag, I'm the coolest mom ever, but I'm really tired today. I need some coffee. Like that's not a hashtag. That's not a hashtag. So that's also a pet peeve of mine. But like I searched Antelope Canyon, and it's these amazing, if you've never been, you got to go check it out, but it's in Page, Arizona. But I kept searching hashtags of these larger cities, and then I would flip through the photos and I'd be like, man, what is that? That is so cool. And so I open the photo and I look at that. I look to see like where it's geotagged right. and what those hashtags were. And I'd write them down. And then I would go online and research those specific spots. Huh. And these Instagrammers, they take these photos and you're like, where in the world are they?
Right.
Wait, what horse are they on? What, so I put together an entire trip on things I found that were cool on Instagram for my family. I mean, we were paddle boarding on Lake Powell. It was wild. I was in a helicopter over the Grand Canyon, and it was all because I saw these like recurring trends on Instagram. And so it was the trip that Instagram built this past summer. It was fantastic.
Now what's interesting, so two things. One, awesome in terms of you getting that idea and using Instagram to plan a family vacation, but then two, just from any domain investors or developers, especially out there, literally Jessica just gave you a tool to go use, Instagram. Yeah. And if you know about a given area, definitely type in hashtags that are similar to that area or in relation to that area, and you can likely, I guess, even likely figure out what to write about, what to highlight, if you were to develop a site.
And also, it takes us back to your question about social media. Is it a hurt or is it a hindrance or a help?
Right.
Well, for me as a producer of content, it is imperative that I use those hashtags in my posts of things I want people to see because people are looking at them. It proves the point, people are looking at them.
Right. Interesting. So then kind of wrapping up here. So if you had to do everything all over again, would you do anything different? And if so, what?
Honestly, I don't have any regrets, to be quite frank. I really don't. I really like the way I've gone on this journey. I'm proud of the way that we try ideas in my office. I'm a big proponent of trying things and succeeding or failing. We're working on a project right now that I'm like, is this going to work or not? I'm willing to see. I'm very proud of that ability. I'm proud of the ability to connect with my customers one-on-one and form those friendships. And I think that's big. So, but from a would I do something differently? I don't know that I would. I mean, maybe there's a couple domains I probably should have taken a second look at city.coms, but even in saying that, I don't know what they are. I mean, I get offered domains a lot. And so, I don't know.
And you always, I mean, you seem like the type of person that if when you're going to, set your mind to achieve a goal, you're always kind of thinking about, it's not just a single directive. It's, well, if this fails, there's always kind of a backup plan.
There is. I do. I operate from that standpoint in a lot of aspects of my life. We had talked about that a little bit, but even when I started and I bought pigeonforge.com in 2000, it was very expensive. I cashed out all my savings and stocks, and my dad helped me, and I ended up paying him back. And
are we talking like 5 figures, 6 figures, or?
I bought that domain for $100,000.
Wow.
I'll tell you that. And I will say at that time,
it might have as been $1 million.
I mean, it might have. Yeah. What 21-year-old is showing up to the table with that cash, but also what are you doing? People were just like, you're nuts. And I don't think I've told very many people that number, Alvin. I mean, just because people really were like, you're crazy.
Especially back then, and knowing the crash and everything.
Yes. I mean, we're in the heart of this crash, and I've got a professor saying, why would you do that? He said, why would you do that? You are going to fail. .coms are in the toilet. You need to take a job with PepsiCo or P&G.
Wow.
And I was like, thanks, but I really see something here.
And who got the last laugh?
Yeah, I'm laughing. I think it's funny now, but that's
all the way to the bank.
Yeah, but you know what? It taught me this. It taught me that don't discourage other people's ideas. Don't discourage other people's ideas. That you got to be open-minded about them, because there's a reason. And I'm trying to think what started this conversation, this part of this question, but
yeah, no. So I think we were just talking about in terms of would you do it all over again, and it's really going. Hey, at worst case, even if it didn't work out that you developed the site, you still had the domain that you could likely flip later down the line.
Exactly. So I came at it as like, well, if I spend this money and I mess up, like I really hate it, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I find, this is just not for me, I can always sell this domain to a hotel group or a big cabin group, because at the end of it, any domain is an asset. What is that asset worth to somebody else? So, I mean, you do your due diligence, of course, absolutely. But I always step back and say, well, what is the worst case scenario here? I mean, I've done that buying houses. What's the worst case scenario? Well, we're going to have to sell the house. Or I think you kind of sometimes have to look at like, what's the bottom? What's your bottom? And my bottom there was, well, I hate it and I am going to sell it. So who are you going to sell it to? And my dad said, you will not have a problem selling that domain. I could almost guarantee it.
Wow, that is awesome. That is awesome. So then in terms of what's next? What's the overall exit plan, or is there an exit plan for pigeonforge.com? I know you said you have daughters, so it's like, hey, are you raising up the next generation to take over, or is it that you're going to sell? What's next for Pigeon Forge?
I don't know. I love what I do. If somebody came along and said, hey, I've got this domain, would you be interested in buying it? I would absolutely consider it within the right parameters. If somebody had a domain similar to mine, or even other domains, I mean, business development and business consultation in general is fun and exciting for me from a marketing and PR perspective. I enjoy that. Even if it were outside of travel tourism, I would welcome that. Take on a consulting job. If somebody just said, hey, can you come and help me get this off the ground? Absolutely. And, I don't know, there's a fellow who owns Brevard.com, and you might've met him in Asheville, and he's a friend of mine. And so Peter Askew, and he's just a friend of mine. We've talked
because he also did what was it, Dude Ranch, right? I think duderanch.com, and then Vidalia Onions.
Yes, which is an amazing story. Go search that story, VidaliaOnions.com. It's just a great business. And but he said, hey, he just out of nowhere, that's actually kind of how I reconnected with him. He said, can you give me some pointers? And I was like, absolutely. Because his success on a Brevard standpoint, like even on Brevard scale, Brevard is North Carolina. It's a small community with cabins, beautiful, Western North Carolina, stunning area if you've never been. But even on a smaller scale, it's not a 12 million, physical visitors to Pigeon Forge and the Great Smoky Mountains type of destination, but it's still a destination that people love. His success is my success.
Wow.
And I think awesome. It is. I just believe that. I believe that for all domains, whatever size in this market of these pure city geo.coms, their success is my success. And I think I have in our group, we have a lot of friends I have a lot of friends that own some other city.coms, Albany.com, Saratoga.com, Scottsdale.com. You meet people across the years, and we are always willing to share ideas and numbers and what works and what doesn't work, and to be very open and honest and transparent about it, because they aren't my competition. They're my friends, and their successes are my successes, and my successes are their successes. And that's one really cool thing about this group of geos, is that you can do that.
Wow. So then obviously there are going to be domain investors, or more specifically, domain developers who are likely going to want to likely contact you. I mean, if they want to contact you, how do they go about doing that?
So the best way is to email me at jessica@pigeonforge.com. But with that, I'm going to give you one caveat, is that I'm going to be really open and honest with them. And if they got a crappy idea, I'm not going to be super like, oh, that's really awesome. I'm probably going to be pretty like, yeah, here's the reality of this. That's a crappy portfolio. Let's move on. Like, what else do you have in here?
Says, take off the kid gloves. You're about to get the truth.
I've got to cut to the chase. I don't really want to mince words here. So
no, that's good, because I think oftentimes even investors and developers can be, kind of dazed by their own smoke and mirrors of thinking, oh my goodness, I have this multi-million-dollar development idea or portfolio, when in reality, I mean, you might get a nice hotel stay out of it.
Exactly. Exactly. And a lot of times people are just emotionally attached to domains, or it's a good idea, but it's not a killer idea, or it's an idea that is a killer idea, but they want to put zero work into it. I don't just go to work and, count checks. Like
story.
You have to work. Like I work hard. I work early. I work late. I do love what I do. But you can't just get a domain and be like, and show me the money. It doesn't work that way.
So what would be your nugget of truth to someone wanting to start a website about a passion, interest, or informational / advertorial tourism site?
Gosh, that's a hard one. I could probably go on for days, but I think we're going to go back to one of the things that I think is a key component is that I focus on is still having a personal touch point. We've talked about this.
Right.
And especially in travel tourism, hospitality is a big component of success, whether it is when you are face to face with a visitor in your area, sharing your passion about the area. Why do you come to the Smoky Mountains and Pigeon Forge every single year?
Right.
But it's also that having that sort of personal connection to your clients. And,
right.
When we get new clients, even now, we write them thank you notes. I think that's really important. I call people, I talk to them. I don't send just email after email after email. I like to sit down and meet with my clients and just connect with them. I think that's really important. And a lot of that is lost in online commerce. And
wow.
I just think it's important. And, I think a lot of my clients are surprised when they call my office and I'll answer the phone and I talk to them. I think they are like, oh, that's a person. Yeah. When you email me, you're emailing me. And even our
getting gatekeepers and
and even our guests is pretty funny. We somehow, our office number is out in the land of the internet. And so we have actual guests from all over will call and ask crazy things like what's the weather in Pigeon Forge, but that's neither here nor there. But, but they ask questions about, where is this hotel, or when is this event, or where can I find this? And, I'll answer the questions. I think it's fascinating because it helps me learn about the clients, or the visitors, and just talking to them. And it inspires me because I know that they're having fun and what I'm doing is making a difference in their lives and their memories and their families' lives.
Wow.
I just think you can have an online business, but there is something very important about still maintaining an actual personal connection with your businesses and your community.
So the personal connection is timeless yet critical to the success.
It is. It's hospitality. Now, I'll leave you with this. Think about it this way. When you have friends over for dinner or company to your home, you are engaging in hospitality, right?
Right.
So you don't just leave the front door open and you're sitting on your sofa and you're like, hey, you answer the door and you get dressed up for the event. You answer the door, you welcome them in, you take their coats, what would you like to drink? And you have food out. It's hospitality. So it's the same concept that has to be applied over online. Wow. Is that you're inviting people into your community, you're inviting people into your world, and you need to treat them as such. So I think that's the key takeaway for me today would be just that you need to focus on the hospitality. It is imperative both offline and online.
And likely if you can't do that hospitality bit, or you can't find someone to do that, then you likely don't need to develop.
You're in the wrong business.
Wow. Well, last but not least, is there anything else that you'd like to share with the listeners?
No, other than if you have a chance, go to one of our sites, pigeonforge.com, durango.com, thevirginislands.com. Take a look. If you see something that you love, you see something that you hate, if anything, you have a good idea, just email me. You can always go to the bottom of any of our sites. There's an advertise link there, but all of those come to me. So shoot me an email, or like I said, jessica@pigeonforge.com. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you are a domainer considering becoming a developer in the travel tourism space, and you're just not sure how to start, I also welcome any, call or contact. I'm happy to help you. I'm excited about the industry. I love tourism.
Nice. Well, with that, we're out of time. So, Jessica, thank you again for joining us today and sharing your entrepreneurial journey, developing domains into proven profitable businesses.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Definitely. And thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Kickstart Commerce, where we share search marketing and domain name strategies to help grow your business. Please subscribe to this podcast via iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or Podbean. Last but not least, please visit kickstartcommerce.com to subscribe to the weekly newsletter sharing tips and tricks about the disciplines of digital strategy. Thanks, and that's all for now.